Good afternoon. You're listening to the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. I am your host, Jasmine Urbina, here in the studio today with my dad and co-host, Alex Urbina. Hi, Dad.
How are you?
Good. Today we're going to be talking about Parenting 101, and this is going to be the first part of our series. We're going to be talking about the things that we need to be teaching our children about living consciously. Before we start, what does that mean?
That means that I want you to be open to the possibility that when we have our kids and they're born, we make a commitment, whether it's internally and to ourselves, that we want to raise our kids to be beautiful human beings. We want to raise our kids to be leaders in the world and navigate the world in a very powerful way, such that they're showing up as responsible citizens in the world, and that we get to a certain point in our life where we look at our young adult kids or our adult kids and just be proud of the legacy that they left behind and the mark that they left on the world. And so in order to do that, you got to teach certain morals and values and principles to your kids to be able to show up like that in the world.
So I just have a quick question, because I'm not a parent, so I don't know if this conversation ever takes place. But is there a point where, parents are about to become parents and they sit down and say, you know what, we're about to bring a baby, a child into this world. We need to decide how we want to go about doing that. Like, do parents do that, or they just have a kid and then find it along the way? Like, do they set like goals for themselves? How does that whole process work?
It's a great question. I think there are different levels to parenting, and every parent is at a certain level in their journey of consciousness or spirituality, and each one of them depends on what their commitment is to raising that child. Some of us, when we're really highly conscious and aware, we have an intention to raise our kids in a certain way and teach them along that way. And then there's some of us that aren't conscious at any kind of level, and we just do the best we can, and we just have kids and we're not really aware or have an intention to raise them any specific way. We just do the best we can. So to answer that question, there's parents there's parents on different spectrums of that journey of awareness and consciousness, and having that intention to raise them to be beautiful human beings in the world.
I imagine that most people, or some people at least, have had that conversation before, and it kind of, as far as like the consciousness and the conscious journey and raising conscious children, I imagine is having that conversation multiple times, not just when you're first having a child, but through the phases of their life. Because, we always talk about the coaching style parenting, and the coaching style parenting kind of revolves around reinventing yourself and looking into what your kid needs at that moment, and not just following the same, strict rules.
Yeah. And I'm going to make an assumption that if you have an intention to raise conscious children, you have to have been embarked on your own journey of consciousness as well. It doesn't make sense to me that you would be teaching your kids how to be aware and conscious and present and living in the moment, and you're teaching all these distinctions if you haven't either embarked on your own journey or learning along with them. So it would make sense that as a parent, you would have to learn these distinctions to be able to teach them and model them at the same time.
Right. So one of our things we're going to go over today is morals, values, principles, and life distinctions. And this is just going to be part one of our Parenting 101. Full disclosure, I don't know at what part this ends. I don't know if it ends at part 3 or part 6 or 20, but I imagine that we're going to have a lot of things to kind of go over. And I do invite people, if you're listening on Facebook Live, to comment your questions, especially if you if it's something that we're talking about, or maybe you disagree with it and you found a different way to find success with your kid, because not every kid's the same. Our feedback is really coming from me as a kid and you raising 3 kids. So what I'm most excited about this, these parts, is going to be hearing what other people are going through, because we don't really know every single kid, and we're not, gurus or professionals or anything. We just are sharing basically our life with everybody.
Yeah, this is really based upon our own conscious journey and having walked on that journey and that path we're sharing from our own experience and my experience of the breakdowns and the breakthroughs that I've had, as well as the challenges and breakdowns and breakthroughs of other people that I've coached, and then as well as my challenges that I've had as a conscious father raising you and your brother and your sister, as well as your experience as well. So this is all about experience, and I think the dialogue is really about opening up possibilities and just, personal power is about grabbing onto more perceptions. And if we can open up these powerful perceptions and have this powerful dialogue, we're now putting people into the question where they're looking at themselves and they're questioning their own parenting and realizing if there's a next level that they can get to. And hopefully we can inspire other parents to want to embark on that journey as well.
Okay, so that being said, let's start with some of the things that we need to be teaching our children
So
about living consciously.
what I'll do is I'll just go down the list because it's a very long list, and then you tell me if something resonates with you that we'll talk about, because I think based on what really is important, I think to you, or you think is important as a parent to really embody or really teach, we'll just have that kind of dialogue as I go down the list. So the number one, and it's in alphabetical order, which is pretty cool. So the very number one life distinction is awareness.
Pause. I want to pick this one. Okay,
Okay.
go ahead. Finish.
No, I just want to. We can just start and go one at a time. That's the cool part about a series is that we could just go at our pace, because I think that we can really add some valuable insight and perspective about each distinction. So the first one is awareness.
So the reason why this one just already immediately jumped out at me was because I think the number one thing where the teen and parent relationship is either flawed or dysfunctional or not 100% where parents want the relationship to be is because they're not aware of the things that are going on in that relationship. And I think as a teenager, we forget that our parents have a whole nother life and have other kids in the same way that, the parents forget that the teens have their whole life and friends and bullies and school and all the things that are normal challenges. And I think that parents just, even if they are conscious or are on a conscious journey, they're not aware that things are going on that they can't control in their kid's life.
And I think that's part of the journey is how much more aware can we be? How deeper can we go down that rabbit hole of awareness such that we're not just only aware of my own state of mind, my own thoughts, my own beliefs, my own fears and insecurities, but I'm also aware of the possibility that you have your own thoughts, your own beliefs, your own insecurities and fears that you're going through. So awareness is actually a depth. It's how deep can you go down that rabbit hole of awareness that has you become higher level of consciousness such that you're able to shift yourself in that relationship and have it dialed in and really optimize at a higher level.
Yeah, and I mean, how many parents have had the fight with their kids where they hear them say, "You never pay attention. You're not paying attention to me. You don't know what's going on. You don't understand." All of those things fall in the awareness category. Awareness is just like you said, it's going deeper, because you may be paying attention and see that, maybe your kid is a little bit shy. Maybe he doesn't have that many friends. Just because you're paying attention to it doesn't mean you are really aware of the level, because he could be going to school and not only not have friends, but have bullies, and not only, be alone at school, but be alone at home, even though you have a whole family, a house full of kids. And it's more so what you're going to do about the things that you pay attention to.
So let's talk real quick about what awareness means to you. And I'll start with what it means to me. Awareness to me is learning how to be present and live in the present moment while you're observing. Now you have to be in the present moment observing, but without thought. Because if I'm in the present moment and I'm thinking about what I'm seeing and I'm not observing, if I'm thinking about what I'm seeing, a lot of times I'm in judgment. Like that's right, that's wrong. And so I'm in the present moment, but I'm in my mind analyzing. So being present and being aware is that self-reflection from a place of observing in a neutral way. Just having things be an observation rather than judging it and deciding what you think it is. You're just in that present moment reflecting and observing yourself and others and the environment around you.
I like that definition better than mine. Mine's like a little bit more negative.
No,
But
don't give it a better or worse. Just
because,
because your insight is valuable too. Because awareness means different things for different people.
well, for me, awareness, kind of does have a little bit of judgment in it. I think just naturally, maybe we shouldn't be doing that, but regardless, we are. And I think, for a teenager, if you are, the parent looking at your teenager and seeing that there are things that are maybe not, helpful for them, they're going down maybe
Not
like
beneficial. It's
wrong
not
path.
working for you. You're headed down a path that, from my experience, isn't going to be a challenge for you.
Right. So to you, you're automatically putting judgment on it. Like, how could they do this? I didn't raise them to be this way. It's because they're hanging out with this person. There's a lot of judgment that's naturally going to come from it, which I think is okay because at least you're aware of it and you can take steps to move forward. So to me, the judgment I don't think is so bad if you're moving forward in an effective way.
Okay. So I hear what you're saying. For me, the awareness is being able to look at the judgment. So then if you're aware of your judgments, then there's awareness and then there's judgment. So they're separate. They're two different distinctions. So I don't want, for me, to put them together because judgments isn't awareness and awareness isn't judgments. They're two separate things. So the awareness for me is just being able to look at it first and then see what it is from an objective or a neutral place. Then I could decide whether it's good, bad, right, wrong, effective, not effective, working for me or not working for me. So I wanted to slice it down to just basic general piece of apple pie, and awareness simply is just observing and reflecting and seeing what's there.
And I think that's right. I think obviously those two things are different distinctions. They're completely different words, meanings, but I think they go together naturally.
Yeah.
That why not use them in a positive way?
Right. The next one is ability. Do you think it's important to sit down and have a discussion with your kids and teach them the distinction about their ability or their abilities as a creative being? And the reason why I'm going to say yes is because I was never taught as a kid how powerful I am with my choices and my ability to create certain results that affected the world. No one ever sat me down and said, hey, Alex, you have some very special gifts in your ability to think, in your ability to choose, the choices you make, where you're choosing from. You're a creative being and you have certain abilities within yourself other than the abilities that I can do physically, like sports. And a lot of times, as parents, we get really excited because little Johnny runs really fast and we're like, oh my God, his ability to run fast is going to be great. And we attach it to sports. But there's a lot of kids that don't have those kinds of physical abilities, but they have a whole plethora of beautiful qualities and abilities within themselves that the world needs that we don't really talk about because we don't focus on those things as parents.
Yeah, one of the things that my sister and I, it's weird because we kind of were having a conversation along these lines that nobody really, when you're young, teaches you how to be creative, but they do kind of sometimes intentionally or not almost stop that creativity. So if somebody's not building you up, especially your parents or your teachers, if someone's not building you up, they're breaking you down, even if they're not doing anything. So,
or whether they're not doing it intentionally,
well,
unintentionally.
Even if you're not sitting down telling your kid, you love to draw, go ahead, you can draw whatever you want. You could be this, you could be that, or you love sports, or you love whatever. They're building you up based on that ability because they believe in you, because they love you. If you don't say anything at all, you may not be intentionally breaking them down, but that's almost how it could be perceived. If let's say I'm really good at singing and nobody ever and I sing all the time and nobody ever says, hey, you're a really good singer. Then to me, I'm just kind of, well, maybe I'm not that good because no one's ever told me.
Right.
But that's not what they're saying. They're not saying you're a bad singer. They're just not saying you're good. So it's weird
or good enough.
Yeah, it's weird that our mind makes that up. But as a young kid, even as a grown adult, that's exactly what we make up.
So parents, just know that as human beings, it's normal to create limiting beliefs about ourselves. It's in our wiring. It's in the monkey mind, right? In our ego to create these limiting beliefs, doubting ourselves. So it's an automatic pilot that we're just going to keep doubting our abilities. What we need is the counterbalance. We need the mom or the dad to counterbalance that and say, no, those are great abilities, and you can actually someday create a living, using those abilities and putting them to best practices. So what we need is for you to fan that flame when it comes to reminding us that those abilities are our special gift to the world.
Yeah, and I think that one of the I don't want to say faults. I'm trying to find a better word. One of the maybe shortcomings that parents don't realize that they're doing is not maybe like fanning that flame, not getting their kids excited about something because nobody did that for them. And one of the things that, I mean, even from my own experience, if I was excited about something, I had to almost ask. I would say, you know what, Dad, I need you to pay attention to me. Put everything down. Pay attention to me. I'm really excited. And then in that, you were able to say, all right, go. Let me hear it. Let me hear your idea. I'm ready. Whatever you want to, whatever you can. Let me just tell you now. You don't even have to tell me the idea. You can do it. But I have to ask. And most kids are not asking.
Right.
Most kids they run up, and in their excitement, they're asking you to pay attention to them. They're asking you for their support. They're asking you to speak to their abilities. But parents aren't doing that. And even me, I'm not a parent, but I'm not doing that in my relationships.
Yeah. And you asking, had I not raised you with at least some kind of awareness or looking at that or creating that space for you, that safe space for you to come and ask for it, you probably would have asked for it in different ways. And it could look like,
hey, Dad, I got to tell you something.
But also in negative ways. Because you got to remember, kids are always communicating. They just might not be communicating abruptly. They might not be communicating just direct. They're doing it in indirect ways. But as you were talking, as I'm listening from the state of awareness I am now, I'm realizing that if I could do a redo, I wish I would have been at a higher stage of awareness and consciousness, that you didn't have to come and ask me, that I was really observant and watching and seeing some of those things, that I could have got to that and fanned that flame before you even had to ask. And I think that's the learning curve that and the takeaway here for no matter what level of consciousness you're at.
Yeah, and before we go on to the next one, I just wanted to share a quick story. Just in my last couple of years of being out of high school and trying to discover who I am and what I want to do, there's been a lot of times where I've come to you excited about something. Dad, I want to do this, that. Well,
You're gonna make me cry.
No. Oh. It's not a sad story. So one of the last times was when I was, taking classes here at our lovely College of the Canyons, and I was taking a real estate class, and I got really, really excited that a lot of those things were clicking for me, and I was excited about it. So I came to you and I was like, Dad, I think I want to do real estate. And I knew that you had a little bit of a real estate past when you were younger, so it was important to me to get validation from you. I'm gonna cry, so maybe you might. And I didn't really get the reaction I wanted, or the one that I was looking for, with like, yeah, you can do it. Like, almost like I didn't get it like I did with the other ones. All the other ones I could have said, I want to fly to the moon, and you would have been like, yeah, you can do it.
Or I want to be a life coach, and I probably would have got really excited.
Yes, and so I didn't get the reaction I wanted. It was more of like a reasonable reaction, like, oh, are you sure? You know how real estate agents are, and that doesn't really seem like a good fit for you. It was more like you just didn't see it for me the way that I saw it for me. So it wasn't until a little while later you started asking me about it, or you started getting excited about it, and I was like, okay, it was almost like I needed your permission or validation before I jumped head in. And as soon as you started, being on my team about it, I was like, the next day I was already like signing up to take the test to get my license, because it was like I was waiting. And so many kids do this when they're older, when they're 30, 40, 50, they wait for their parents to say, yeah, go ahead, you can do it, before we like take that jump sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great story. That story is perfect to land this distinction and this point. And that's why for me, at the level of consciousness now, or even back then, it was finally realizing that this is really what you want to do. And if it is what you want to do and you love it, then I got to be on board. But like you said, you wish you would have had it just a little bit sooner. And me, in hindsight, I wish I would have been a lot more conscious and aware and had been excited for you right at the get-go. And so these are the learning curves, and that's why we talk about these kinds of things, so that we can help other parents realize and have that aha moment, so that they don't repeat some of the shortcomings that we as conscious parents wish we could go and do a redo or a take back.
Yeah.
And before we go on a break, I want you to know that I'm so sorry that I wasn't that person that you needed me to be. And I love you and support you no matter what you are. And thank you for sharing that.
Thank you. And we're all working on it, Dad, so it's okay. We'll be right back. Stay tuned for more of The Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
Sweet, salty, tastiest, bacon and pancakiest, big yawns are okay, yummy syrups, yes way, butter pecan, blueberry, old-fashioned strawberry, never empty coffee pot, Mom says it hits the spot, almonds are the fluffiest, Dad's hugs the scruffiest, scrambled eggy, pepper shaky, orange juicy, wide awake, stuffed French toastiest, waffles with the mustiest, buttermilky, smooth, the silky taste great, love on a plate.
IHOP, everything you love about breakfast.
Hey, where are you going with that used motor oil? Did you know used oil filters should be recycled too? Yeah, that's right. A used filter has a lot of residual oil left on it even after you drain it, enough to pollute the environment. So make sure to take both the used motor oil and the oil filter to the next filter exchange event or recycling center near you.
Recycle your used motor oil and oil filter at the next event, Saturday, March 10th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at O'Reilly Auto Parts located on Castaic Road in Castaic. Again, Saturday, March 10th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at O'Reilly Auto Parts located on Castaic Road. Participants will receive one free new oil filter valued up to $12. For more information about recycling used motor oil or used oil filters, call 1-888-CLEAN-LA or visit cleanla.com. Funded by Cal Recycle.
They were a rock icon, Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
He had white horses and ladies by the score, all dressed in satin and waiting by the door. Ooh, what a lucky man he was.
Now you can hear the artistry of Carl Palmer this Saturday night at the Canyon Club in Valencia. Take a trip down musical memory lane with Carl Palmer and enjoy our opening act, our one and only local singing sensation, Savannah Burrows. Savannah Burrows and Carl Palmer this Saturday, March 10th at the new Canyon Club in the Valencia Town Center. Tickets at Ticketmaster.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we're talking about Parenting 101, things we need to be teaching our children about living consciously. This is a part one of our series. Before we went on the break...
Which looks like at this rate of speed, we're going to have like series 20.
So far we've gone through awareness and ability, so we've only gone through 2. What's the next one, Dad?
The next one is action. So here's another life distinction that we should be teaching our kids, is about the word action and what does action mean and how is it in relationship to you. To me, action is a creative process that each one of us has the ability to manifest results. So you can be a dreamer, you can dream, and being a dreamer is important, and so is your vision, and being able to believe that the vision is possible first. That's the first stages. But then after you have the belief and you believe it's possible and you have a vision and you're excited about it and you have an intention, then you actually have to create some kind of action. You got to use your ability to choose and make some choices to put that plan into play. And from your actions starts to manifest results. In the beginning, it might not manifest the kinds of results that are in alignment with what your vision is, but at least it's a starting point. It's the creative process. So as kids, as children, you need to teach your kids what action means. You got to sit down and hold a class in your living room and talk about these distinctions, the awareness, the ability, and what action is and what it means and how powerful it is as a tool in our tool belt.
I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the time we started our own. I don't even know. We would call it church just because we would do it on Sunday mornings. We would refer to it as church, but we would have this class, like it was our whole family.
It was a life class.
Yeah, it was a life class, but my siblings and I, we would call it church because it was like Sunday mornings. We would have to go to this class in our living room, taught by you and sometimes mom, and it would go over stuff like this. And one of the things I remember was we were kind of talking something about along the lines of action, and about how you can't just be a dreamer. You can't just have ideas and not implement them. You can, but not to be, a successful, conscious person in the world that's contributing and being effective and, all those things. So in that, I remember you saying, I was still young. I think my brother was like in high school still. So you were telling my brother, you can't just say, I want to be a good football player. You have to practice. You have to, it was repetition. It was playing with a ball. It was going outside. So anyways,
making mistakes.
Yeah, it was all these things. And one of the things you said was to my brother was, how can we support you? And he said, you know what? It's really hard to go to school and go to practice and then come home and have to do chores. So my sister and I picked up on his chores so that he could go and live his dream and do his thing. So from then on, every single time we take on a new task, it's like we have this big family meeting. Naturally, I don't know where it comes from. Maybe you call it, or I don't know, but we have this big family meeting and we all say, okay, how can I support you? And then we all take on a task like in their life to make sure that dream comes true. I've had that meeting focused on me plenty of times. My sister, my brother, we've all sat there. And one of the things I always, sometimes I hear, you talking to my brother in the living room saying, okay, how can I support you? And then I'm leaning over, looking in, trying to be a part of the conversation. Well, how can I support you? Because there's things that, I'm good at. There's things I can help at. So I think, not only is action important, but so is community. So is making sure that your child has a relationship with people where they can ask for help in that action. Because there's one thing that especially you and I have learned as, entrepreneurs and trying to make our businesses, our self-run businesses blow up, is that we can't do it all, and we can't do it all on our own. And, so not only is action, kind of how I was saying earlier, that awareness and judgment almost go hand in hand. I think action and, I don't know what you want to call it, maybe community or relationships, those two kind of go hand in hand too.
And I think teamwork as well, because it takes a team to be a part of your village, or you're going to have to surround yourself with a very powerful team that you trust and they trust you. And then that team's going to have to, support you in whatever kind of way support you need in order to create that result. So I think that's also another distinction. But I think you're going to find that each one of these distinctions
has things that go
they're all
together.
Interwoven, because they really support each other. But that was a great example. Thanks for sharing that. The next one is attachments. There's this distinction called attachments, and when we are really aware and looking at all the things that we become attached to, and when we become attached to certain things, we get focused on holding on to those things. And the way the universe works is that nothing is tangible. Things are always here to ebb and flow. They're here to bless us, and then they're here to unbless us. And they're here to, if you notice everything about the world, just like the seasons come and go, nothing stays forever. So you have to learn, in order to master your life and really be stressless and worry-free and be really powerful, is you have to start to learn how to let things go and unattached to things when the universe is saying, okay, it's time to let go of this. And so attachments and teaching the distinction of what attachment means is very a powerful tool to start educating our kids so that they can understand what that distinction means.
Is there like any way where attachment can be healthy, like maybe attaching, like I'm really attached to one of my morals of being truthful, because I had a past as a kid where people didn't believe me because I lied. And it's a chapter in your book, talks about me and the stages that I went through, lying and getting in trouble and not being, an honest person. And I'm really, really attached to being honest and being truthful, because I didn't like nobody believing me. Even to this day, a 6-year-old who lied, how many years has it been? I'm 22 now, and I can't shake that almost sometimes. So, what I'm asking is it okay to be attached to things, or being attached to your goals, or being, there has to be healthy attachments, right?
There is, and the distinction is called commitment. So there are things that you're committed to. So you're committed to living your life with integrity. You're committed to telling the truth all the time. You're committed to doing the right things all the time. So your commitment to those morals and values and principles is the value that you're talking about. The word attachment means that you're holding on to it and you don't want to surrender it, which is unhealthy, because in the world you can't control everything. You can't forever have something, even when you don't want to let it go. Sometimes the universe is telling you it's time to let this go. And when you don't, that's when you're now starting to be in resistance to the way that the world or the universe is unfolding. So the word attachment means that you're holding on to something and you're unwilling to surrender it or let it go. That's different than having a commitment to your own values and principles and morals. It just doesn't make sense to say I'm attached to having great morals and values and principles. It's a more healthier distinction to say I'm more committed to that.
Okay, what about I resonate with this, and so do you. What about being stubborn? Like some of us are, or being right. I guess you could be attached to being right?
Absolutely.
And I think that's where a lot of parents. That's where a lot of parents find themselves, bumping heads with their kids, is stubborn. Like you can have.
That's what stubborn is. Stubborn means you have a lot of attachments.
Attachments to being right. Attachments to not losing against this person.
Yeah. I have attachments to not losing. I have attachments to being right. I have attachments to winning. So the word attachment, I think, is more fear-based. It's more of an unhealthy distinction. And so it's important to learn what that is, so that when you are self-reflecting and you are self-aware, you're asking yourself this question. All right, Alex, what are you attached to? Well, in this situation, I'm attached to being right. Well, do you think being right is the actual distinction that you need right now to create the result you're looking for? No, it's not. Okay, great. So surrender the attachment to being right in this moment and allow this moment to unfold the way that's supposed to unfold organically, so we can unstick ourselves and move forward.
Yeah, I'm like having a really big issue with the stubborn thing right now. So even you talking about that is like making me cringe, because I'm like, I need to be right. And I think that so many people, and I've been working on being stubborn for like 7 years, like ever since I was 13, 15, I don't know, that like weird age where you're
a recovering stubbornaholic.
Yeah, like we would fight about how I would fight how I'm not stubborn, and then I think we would just start you would start laughing and be like, you're doing it right now. Like I remember having those fights because I so badly did not want to admit to being stubborn, and now that I know, it's taken so long to kind of shake that. And and that attachment to being right is so unsatisfying now that I know really like the dysfunction.
And just so you know, that the attachment to being right is actually an interpersonal addiction, which is a whole nother show. We have addictions that are external, and then we have interpersonal addictions. And once you're addicted to some of those inner qualities, they could be your prison.
Definitely.
The next one is balance. This distinction called balance is something I think that we need to teach our kids, because if we don't talk about it, if we don't teach them that how balance is healthy, and we don't introduce this distinction to their vocabulary and into their beingness, they won't know how to, pick and choose certain things to live their life such that they're in balance. because the opposite, which is off balance, they're going to have a lot more of something and a lot less of something else. And that's how we end up having stress or heart attacks, or we overwhelm ourselves to the point because we're off balance. And when we start to learn how to balance our life, we're now in a healthy mode. And when we're off balance, then we're in an unhealthy mode. So this distinction, I think, is important to teach our kids so that they're growing up making certain choices that have some kind of balance in their life.
Yeah, I think parents are unconsciously teaching their children balance, but they're not teaching them to choose. They're kind of just telling them. Like they'll tell them that family, chores, school, soccer practice, they're telling them like what is important and how to spend their time doing those things, instead of letting them choose and say, maybe self-reflection is really important, like journaling. Maybe like your kid's really into, writing down in their journal before they go to bed, and they're not making those things like priorities. So I think that parents are teaching their kids balance, but they're, like I said, they're just not letting them choose what it is they want to focus on.
Yeah, and you got to be open to the possibility that they're not teaching them about balance because they, as adults, don't have balance and haven't learned it, and no one has taught them. And quite often, as a life coach, if I have a session with a mom or dad and they're giving me a scenario where their son or daughter is taking on too much, and the parent wants to give them advice that is dealing with the symptom, not the underlying issue, which is that they haven't learned balance. So a lot of times my coaching to the parents is, have you had a conversation with your son or daughter about balance and what it looks like to have a balanced life? And then the common response is, no, I haven't. So a lot of times my coaching would be, instead of telling your kids, don't do this, don't do that, open up a whole 20-minute discussion about balance and how healthy that is. And what you'll notice is when the parents actually take my coaching, have the conversation with their kids about balance, they notice all of a sudden that the symptom has shifted back and that the kid has made that course correction, because all they were missing was learning that distinction of what balance is versus what's being unbalanced.
Yeah, and I think I think parents still, everyone naturally tries to balance their whole life out, but if you're not paying attention to it, then you are a little bit unbalanced, and I can really identify with, and I'm sure everybody listening can identify with that, having that uneasiness or like feeling overwhelmed. But I really think that for me, I've noticed that when I get really overwhelmed, it's because there's other parts of my life that I haven't been paying attention to, that I haven't been filling that bucket, and I've been feeling too much of, let's say, work and friends. But my family and my chores and my relationship and everything else, like, is still, and my dreams especially, are kind of empty, and then that's when I'm overwhelmed, because I think there's all these other things going on. So when I'm visually representing it, I realize that we're all doing it. We all have like our thing going on, and we're unconsciously unbalancing ourselves on purpose.
Yeah, and that's the whole part of being aware, is checking in with yourself and reflecting and saying, all right, Alex, have you taken on too much? Could you have bitten off more than you can chew? And sitting in that question helps me reflect and realize, okay, I'm unbalanced. I'm doing too much of this and I'm being less of that. Or I've taken on too much of this part of the wheel and I've neglected this part of the wheel. So the balance is the part of helping us live harmonious lives and lives of peace and joy and harmony, because we've figured out how to balance our lives in such a way that it's working for us.
Yeah, and just, this is a little bit off topic, but I'm realizing now that this not only goes obviously for your parent-teen relationship, but all your relationships, and for as well as business owners. I'm kind of looking back at all the ones that we just went through, and all of these hit those categories of, how can I run the most effective business? How can I make sure my employees are happy and doing the most? And even the last one, when we're talking about balance, it's a game. You're just kind of juggling through, like, to make sure that every single bucket is full. And so if you're a business owner, I would probably write these down. I just wanted to point that out.
And a lot of times, when I'm coaching clients that are super successful, a lot of times the price they pay in the unbalanced area is the home and the relationships with their wives or their husbands or their kids, because they're such go-getters and they're so good at what they do in business, and they're so rigorously committed to being successful, and whether it's financial or status or whatever it is, that they're hardwired to keep winning. And they're like these race horses in business, and they're just winning and winning, but they're paying a price because their kids don't get to spend time with them, or they have no connection, or their kids aren't getting the emotional nutrients that they're supposed to be getting from dad, because he's off spending most of his time focused on the business. And that's where unbalance comes into play. And a lot of times when I have parents that are coming to me because they're on the verge of divorce or they're going through a divorce, a lot of times the aha moments that some of the husbands or the wives that are the big breadwinners and they're overcommitted or unbalanced and all work driven is they're realizing that the price they paid was that they weren't taking care of the things that meant the most to them, which was their family. So it's a common thing that if we don't learn these powerful life distinctions and we're unaware of it, we don't realize it until now it's already hit overload and we have the disastrous result. And we're facing, looking at, man, what went wrong in my life? Well, for the last 20, 30 years, you've been so unbalanced that something had to give. And the thing that gave was your wife, or the things that gave was your marriage, or the thing that just broke was your kids saying, I can't take this no more. And now I'm going to, so some kids will start using substance abuse because they have this empty void inside that dad or mom didn't fill, because they were so rigorously committed to something else other than family. And that's how we have to really stop and from this higher level of consciousness say, no, I don't want to get to that stage. So I need to start being focused on having a balanced life.
Yeah, and I imagine that it's really challenging to teach these distinctions to your kids if you're not doing them, you're not acting on them. And one of the things we always talk about is modeling and being the example for your kids. So it is really important to not only teach these to your kids, but start working on them yourself, so that when your kids get old enough and you start teaching them, you have examples to show them.
That's right. Yep. Are we going on a break?
Oh, we have to take a quick break. Stay tuned for more of The Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.
The best live theater can be found right here in the Santa Clarita Valley. The Canyon Theater Guild has been entertaining audiences for decades with top quality musicals and plays. Located on Main Street in Old Town Newhall, CTG also offers workshops for the young actor in your family. For more information, call the box office at 799-2702 or go online to canyontheater.org.
You love your pet, but there are still some everyday challenges that you just haven't been able to fix. Tune into The Doggy Director with Canine Master Stephen Ritt, Saturdays at 11 a.m. right here on KHTS. He'll be taking your calls and giving you insight using the Ritt Way, a technique he's honed through decades of training. The Doggy Director, every Saturday at 11 on 98.1 FM and AM 1220 KHTS. Catch the podcast at hometownstation.com.
All-Star Sports Grills is the best place in town to catch a Dodger game on one of their 17 screens and choose a cold one from 23 different tap beers. All-Star Sports Grills prides itself on their fresh, made-to-order menu, including half-pound Angus burgers. Enjoy an all-star comedy show the fourth Wednesday of the month. All-Star Sports has a pet-friendly and smoking patio. All-Star Sports Grills on Bouquet Canyon, north of Plum Canyon.
Welcome back. You're listening to The Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Today we are talking about Parenting 101. It's part one of our unknown part series, things we need to be teaching our children about living consciously. Let's go ahead and go over one more distinction before we bring on our special
the next
guest.
distinction is going to be beauty. And this distinction, I think, is important for us to teach our kids about what beauty is and what it can be, and really open up a discussion about what beauty means to us and what it means to them, and really open up that discussion, because I feel like some of the major insecurities that we have as human beings, that we feel like we're not enough. We're comparing ourselves instead of rigorously focusing on noticing and being observant of our own inner beauty and the beauty that we have within us in all realms. And so I think that this is another powerful life distinction, that we get to teach our kids about what beauty is and what beauty means, and have them really focus on noticing and being observant of how beautiful they are.
Yeah, I think people, especially adults, or as you get older, you think that, oh, if I was prettier, if I was handsomer, I would have more clients, or I would get more work, or I would have all these things because I would be better looking. But we don't realize that for the people who are good looking to you, the people who are appear to kind of have it all, they still have their insecurities about the way that they look. And so it almost goes to show that all those age old, I don't even know, cliches that your parents tell you of, oh, beauty comes from within, that it really does, that it wasn't just something that, your parents would say to you to make you feel better. It really is something that people struggle with in their every single day lives, even the people who feel like they're not, models who are just obviously just glowing,
It's funny as you're talking about that, I'm visualizing you going to an art show, and this one artist has created all these beautiful pieces, to the eye, it's beautiful. And then there's another artist that has chosen these pieces that aren't as beautiful to the eye, but has figured out how to hollow those things out and plug in a very beautiful light that turns on and glows and emanates from the inside out. And when people at first glance are walking into this art show, they're all mesmerized by the beautiful pieces that the artist created. And neither one is good or bad, right or wrong. It's just based on what you find to be attractive and what you find the value. But people walk in and they're immediately drawn to the external beauty of the pieces that the artist created on the booth one. And then as you're walking by that and you walk by booth two and you're watching these pieces that look kind of weird and foreign and not so beauty on the outside, and as soon as they turn the light on and it starts to glow, you're like, oh my God. And what you're doing is you're standing there watching the pieces that have illuminated from within, and then you're looking back at booth one and you're going, I really enjoy this piece. It might not be as beautiful on the outside, but the light that's shining from within has really brought this piece to life. It really speaks to me. And so that's kind of how I visualize the human beings is, yeah, we have this outer shell, but there's this inner being of light and love that's shining from within us, that if we really focus on letting that light shine and really kind of overflow out of us, I think is where real beauty lies.
That was really deep and really I'm
too much for you to handle.
It was almost like I was really
Well, we got to
overwhelmed.
transition into a couple of housekeeping things. I want to talk real brief about this event that's coming up called it's a women's empowerment.
Well, let me backtrack. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago we had Sarah and Denise from Spirit Quest on, and they were kind of talking to us about this event that they were going to have that was in a secret location. I believe it was like a teaser, and we actually have Sarah and Denise on the line so they can tell us all about their secret location. Hi.
Hi, ladies.
Hi, how are you?
Hello, Alex and Jasmine. Thank you so much for having us on.
We're so excited to tell you where our special Spirit Quest Teen Edition is going to be.
Okay, spit it out already. I need to know.
All right, drum roll, please. It's going to be at Val Verde County Park. It's going to be March 17th, and it's going to be from 12:30 to 5. Family event focused on teens, and Sarah's going to tell you all the most amazing things that are going to be there.
Thank you, Denise. So, yes, I just want to remind the community this is a free event. All activities will be free. We have 20 positive presenters from your community that are going to be simultaneously sharing their gifts of love, compassion, and positivity. I guarantee that you won't leave with an empty heart. And I just want to remind the community the reason why we created this event was for the purpose of having an opportunity to teach teens and their parents just alternative mindful methods and coping skills for the pressures we face in our daily lives. So get ready, because we have 30 vendors from Sucept crepe trucks, jewelry artisans, drum circle, acoustic guitar jam sessions. So come out and play. We have empowerment speakers, and this will be something very needed for our community.
Beautiful.
Well, we're so happy to be on Alex's show the first time to share this information. And I just wanted to let you know that it is a cash-only event. So bring money for the vendors. And also, we're going to have nature walks. We're going to have, I guess she had already mentioned drum circles. We're going to have a jam session. But what we're mostly going to have is singing bowls. It's going to have family connection. Our community needs to connect, and this is going to be an opportunity to do so, just like you're providing on the radio. So we're so excited about this.
Thank you so much for calling back and giving us that info. Now, for people that are excited, give us a web address to get all that info so they can, have all the information to be there.
So our flyer is available on your website for KHTS radio. So under your calendars, the official flyer is posted now with the address and telephone number, etc. Remember that in Valverde, there is no cell service. It's very limited, and we chose that location for that purpose so that we can connect. So please look for it there. Find us on Facebook. Friend us at Spirit Quest, and we'd be happy to, you'll see all the presenters with details of who's going to be there and vendors. So cash only and free to everyone for the exercises. So please come and have fun.
All right, there it is, Spirit Quest on Saturday, March 17th. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Jasmine. Bye.
Bye. So that's bye for everybody. That's all the time we have for today. But we'll be back next week with part 2 of Parenting 101 right here on your hometown station, KHTS.